All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. I'm your host, Quaviondre Williams.
And I'm Daquon Wilson.
The table is always hot with the current events and social issues, but sometimes it can get a little intense. So let's turn down the temp, take a breather, and get into this week's topic cooldown. Daquon?
So for this week's topic cooldown, I want to pose the question, do you believe that everyone deserves a second chance? More specifically, can you forgive and trust a close person who's wronged you?
That is a question right there. I do think that there is a such thing as a second chance but I think it all depends on the transgression. I think that whatever you did depends on whether or not you deserve a second chance. And it's not just about that. We've talked about this before in our episode Apology Plus Action, that there is a such thing as apologizing and also atoning for what you've done. And so Let's say that you stole from me and you're like, hey, I am so sorry that I did that. And it's like, okay, well, sorry is not enough because you still stole from me. You know, if you return what you stole, if you try to donate more money to me or give me more things to try to say, listen, I want to let you know that I was in a really dark place or whatever, that is a way or a form of atonement. And I think it is all, I just really think that it just depends, because there, especially when it comes to close people, like people that you love and care about, when someone breaks your heart or when someone breaks your trust, more specifically, it is a scar and not a wound. It becomes, because if somebody off the street does something, you're kind of like, man, fuck that. Like, I'm good. Like, water off a duck's back, brush it off my shoulder, I'm fine. But like when someone that you're close to, like a lover or a mother or a sister or a brother or somebody in a really, really close friend, does something that breaks the covenant of your bond together, it's really hard to give that person a second chance, especially if there is not the atonement process taking place. If someone has done you wrong and they are truly sorry about it and they have truly made amends for their transgression, I do think that a part of that covenant is also understanding that, you know what, people are not perfect and people will make mistakes, and that's okay. But I do think that if someone is not making the proper amends or proper atonement, I do think that not everybody's owed a second chance. And I think that sometimes, I think Bob the Drag Queen said this in Sibling Rivalry podcast, and I thought was so fucking it. Like, you can want someone's forgiveness and you can do all the amends and the atonement, and they still cannot forgive you. They reserve the right to not forgive you. And you have to accept that. And I think that people, a lot of times, especially family members or people who are in love, and like I said, that covenant of connection, that deeper connection, I think that there's a problem where people think that because you're my brother, because you're my sister, my mother, my father, my cousin, my aunt, my best friend, my lover, because you are whatever you are to me, you think that you deserve a second chance. And that's not the case. You don't deserve anything. If I choose to give it to you, that's my decision. But just because you want it does not mean I have to give it to you. And I think that there's something to be said about that. I think that people really have to have an understanding of, like, yes, I can forgive you. Doesn't mean I need to owe you a second chance, you know?
Yeah, and I'll just say I agree. I am somebody who has a Scorpio moon. So when it comes to emotions, on the inside, it can be very intense for me. So I think that, as somebody who grew up, being somebody that was, very open and very trusting, I've had a lot of people take my kindness and my trustingness as a weakness and exploited that in my life. And so that literally, made me put up a lot of different walls, because I was like, I can't just keep getting hurt time and time again. And I think that that's a part of this conversation that I don't think is said a lot of times, is that, yeah, sure, you can do everything for somebody to forgive you, but sometimes them not like forgiving you is what's protecting them. That they're not
Ooh.
forgiving somebody is you protecting yourself because you have been hurt time and time again. And yeah, it sounds bad. Like, yeah, you have to unpack everything, but just because you wronged me does not mean that you deserve to walk back into my life. Like, I can be like, you know what, you did this. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. Like, we can move on past that. But if our relationship changes, then that's not me being like, oh, this is your second chance. Like, there's so many different situations where if you do something to me, our friendship, our relationship can never be the same again because you broke that trust. And it's so hard to trust again after your trust was broken by somebody close. So I think that, like you said, there's nothing that you deserve a second
Yeah.
chance. Like, I am granting you a second chance because I believe in our relationship can be much more. And I believe that we can recover
Move
from
past this.
something.
Yeah.
Exactly. But there's just like, and then there's just certain things that like you can't move past. There are certain things that are unforgivable, and like no matter what you do, you're never going to have that second chance.
And actually, I kind of want to push back a little bit. I don't think that forgiveness is the word we should use anymore. Like, I think that because a lot of times people say forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you, right? And
Right.
like they say, a lot of times resentment is you. I heard this quote, I thought it was really powerful too. Like, they say that resentment or like or like being angry at somebody is drinking poison and hoping that the other person dies. And I just really bringing it back to that forgiveness aspect. I don't think that we need to forgive people as so much as releasing that pain.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because to forgive someone is, I mean, the connotation of forgiveness is I'm releasing you from your fault in the matter. It's the connotation that we give to it. It's kind of like, if I forgive you for something, that means that we're okay now. And it's like, no, that's not what I want to say. It's kind of like, this is really brings it back to a little bit deeper for me, is that my fathers, my stepfather who was in my life, and my biological father, both hurt me in one of the worst ways you can a child, and that's abandoning them and leaving them. And one of the things that I realized about forgiveness and about that idea was that I will never forgive them for what they did, because it's some things that are unforgivable. But I do
Right.
think that holding on to that pain of what they did and the anger and the hate, it eats at your soul. It eats you out from the inside. And what I had to realize is, like, I will never forgive them, but I can't hate them anymore.
Mm.
And that's what I had to learn, was that, oh, we're supposed to be cooling down, but I'm kind of getting, but it's like, in life, you have to let that pain go. You have to release it, because if you don't, it will eat you alive. So it's not so much forgiving. It's like letting that go. It's like, you hurt me, and that pain will never, can never be undone. No matter what you do. If my fathers came back to my life right now and we're like, hey, we're good now, I fucked up, but I'm back now, you will never be able to make amends for that 13-year-old person that you hurt, that 14, 15, 20-year-old person that you hurt by leaving them behind. You will never be able to make up for that. But I can release myself of that hatred and anger towards you, because at the end of the day, it's my life that I have to live, and it happened to me, but it does not control or define me. And it does not
Mm.
define how I'm going to move about in my future. And I think
Right.
that that's what we're getting here in this conversation here, is like, it's not, you don't owe anybody a second chance. You don't
You
owe
don't owe
anybody.
anybody a part of yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that that's the issue that we're seeing, is that people are not trying to allow for that, saying like, hey, I may forgive you to heal myself, but we will never be back to where we once were. And you're going to have to accept that and move forward, you know?
Yeah.
So many children grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. So it's time for a change, honey. Let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. So, in an article, 26 Black Americans you don't know but should, they detail the accomplishments of Maria P. Williams. Now, Williams was the first Black woman to produce, write, and act in her own movie in 1923, The Flames of Wrath. And thanks to her, we have female directors and producers like Oprah Winfrey, Ava DuVernay, Issa Rae, and Shonda Rhimes. Now, beyond film, the former Kansas City teacher was also an activist and detailed her leadership skills in the book she authored, My Work in Public Sentiment, in 1916. Black women, baby.
Who constantly raising the bar.
And doing it flawlessly.
And so for my We Did That, in an article, 28 Civil Rights Leaders of Past and Present, Mackenzie Jean-Philippe tells us about the life of Pauli Murray, who was an author, lawyer, women's rights activist, and the first Black person to earn a Doctor of the Science of Law degree from Yale. Many of Murray's essays, poems, and books, which include Negroes Are Fed Up, Dark Testament, and States' Laws on Race and Color, were considered essential foundational works for the civil rights movement. Murray also co-founded CORE, the Congress of Racial Equity, and the National Organization for Women in 1966, alongside many noted feminists of the time, and was appointed to President John F. Kennedy's Committee on Civil and Political Rights.
Honestly, like, it's just so amazing to hear these things. And I love this segment of our show so much. Like, just hearing about these history facts that we've never even known about, or some of us have never even heard of, is such a beautiful thing. So, as always, thank you all so much for watching, and please keep the conversation going down in the comment box below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you are listening to us on our podcast, please rate and review us on whatever platform you are using. If you want to follow us on social media, our handles are at Andre Talks a Lot and at Daquon 950. You can also follow our podcast on Instagram at the Melanin Margin for updates of new content. We'll see you all this time on the 6th, because we're going to take a break for Thanksgiving, but we'll be back, baby. And we'll be back fresher and revitalized from our holiday. So
goodbye now.